Evil Planet.
It's the way that God intended. One man, one woman, one South African weirdo who's standing over your shoulder and going, I didn't say you were allowed to do that.
And one twice impeached president of the United States. He's coming, dude. Biden's coming back. He's gonna run again, dude.
Yeah, Biden's gonna run in 2028.
On like fucking life support.
It's gonna be techno Biden. He's gonna have like the fucking eye like the Terminator.
Augmented Biden.
Popcorn is augmented. Yeah, we're basically talking about Trump's inauguration and like what's been going on with Trump and Elon this episode. We kind of have to address it because it's just
we gotta
so
talk
fucked
about
up.
the romance, yeah.
Guy Heaven White House.
Oh no. One of the things that was going to be a story, but we can mention it here. I don't know, like things might change, but obviously, Trump was inaugurated. Elon helped him win. And if you don't know the story behind that, then you're way too far behind for us to catch you up at this point. But like I said, quite a few things to talk about tonight. But let's ease into talking about the inauguration with this story. Now, we're probably going to catch heat for talking about this. I've seen people catch heat for talking about this already. Because it's basically like, people are calling it like lib January 6th type shit. But this is some actual reporting. Let's look at the details here. I'll just say take it with a grain of salt. But we all know that for decades, right-wingers in the U.S., Republicans, have been openly doing election interference, election meddling, voter suppression.
Gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering is just one part of it. So there's an article here from a journalist called Greg Palast from the Hartman Report. This was published on January 24th, 2025. It reads, Trump lost. That is, if all legal voters were allowed to vote, if all legal ballots were counted, Trump would have lost the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. Kamala Harris would have won the presidency with 286 electoral votes, which was, by the way, what the polls were predicting. Continuing here. And if not for the mass purge of voters of color, if not for the mass disqualification of provisional and mail-in ballots, if not for the new mass vigilante challenges in swing states, Harris would have gained at least another 3.565 million votes, topping Trump's official popular vote tally by 1.2 million. As in Bush v. Gore in 2000 and in too many other miscarriages of democracy, this election was determined by good old vote suppression, the polite term we use for shafting people of color out of their ballot. We used to call it Jim Crow. Here are some key numbers. 4.7 million voters were wrongfully purged from voter rolls according to U.S. Elections Assistance Commission data. By August of 2024, for the first time since 1946, self-proclaimed vigilante voter fraud hunters challenged the rights of over 300,000 voters. The NAACP of Georgia estimates that by Election Day, the challenges exceeded over 200,000 voters in Georgia alone. No less than 2.12 million mail-in ballots were disqualified for minor clerical errors. At least 585,000 ballots cast in precinct were also disqualified. 1.21 million provisional ballots were rejected, not counted, and 3.24 million new registrations were rejected or not entered on the rolls in enough time to vote. If the purges, challenges, and ballot rejections were random, it wouldn't matter. It's anything but random, however. For example, an audit by the state of Washington found that a black voter was 400% more likely than a white voter to have their mail-in ballot rejected. Rejection of black in-person votes, according to a U.S. Civil Rights Commission study in Florida, ran 14.3% or 1 in 7 ballots cast. There's also the unaccountable effects of the explosive growth of voter intimidation tactics, including the bomb threats that closed 31 polling stations in Atlanta on Election Day. The nasty little secret of the American democracy is that we don't count all the votes, nor let every citizen vote. In 2024, especially after an avalanche of new not going to let you vote laws passed in almost every red state, the number of citizens Jim Crowed out of their votes soared into the millions. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, since the 2020 election, at least 30 states enacted 78 restrictive laws to blockade voting. The race-targeted laws ran the gamut from shuttering drop boxes in black-majority cities to, for the first time, allowing non-government self-appointed vote fraud vigilantes to challenge voters by the hundreds of thousands. Throughout election season, the New York Times and NPR and establishment media write stories and editorials decrying vote suppression tactics, from new ID requirements to new restrictions on mail-in voting. But notably, the mainstream press never, ever, not once, will say that these ugly racist attacks on voters changed the outcome of an election. Question: if these vote suppression laws, a notorious example would be Georgia's SB 202, had no effect on election outcomes, then why did GOP legislators fight so hard to pass these laws? Recommend go checking that out. It would be too long to read the whole thing here. Go to gregpalast.com, PALAST. And there's a section Trump lost vote suppression 1. But yeah, I mean, I'd heard things prior to Joe Biden dropping out of the race. You know what I mean? 8-9 months ago, I'd heard things prior to that. Yeah, ever since the 2020 election in a lot of red states, there were election officials who specifically vied to get positions just so they could do things like this. And a lot of people were yeah, well, how much of an effect can it really have? And it seems like it's had an effect. And like I said, take this with a grain of salt. There's a good chance that this might just be, bogus reporting, but I've seen too many things like this recently to just completely discount it. So there's that for starters.
You said that there was only this guy reporting it, right?
No, there's not only this guy reporting it.
Greg
But
Palast?
this is the most detailed, informational breakdown of this. This is why I picked it.
Okay, yeah. I remember saying that if more people would come out and say that these numbers were correct or something along the lines of these numbers, that I would, start to buy into it more. And looking at these numbers here, this is crazy. You hear these numbers said to you, but then you actually look at the numbers and you're like, oh my God.
It's very blackpilling information.
Yeah.
Most
Actually,
Americans... oh, sorry, go ahead.
My vote was actually, I feel like it was suppressed because my signature changed since the last time I voted. And
it's just a bunch of
I
bullshit.
guess re-register again, but I didn't have time. I got swallowed by life obligations. And at that point, I was just already done with it.
Voter suppression always favors Republicans. If less people vote, it always favors Republicans in the U.S. That's just how it works. So we can't dwell on that for too long, but that is something important to consider. As Americans, you guys pretty much all acknowledge, and other people outside of America are aware of this, that the 2000 election was essentially stolen from Al Gore. So it's pretty likely that in the last couple of decades, at least 2 Republican presidential terms were stolen outright through either the use of the Supreme Court or through the use of voter suppression. So that's nice to know. Anyways, moving on. So Donald Trump was inaugurated. Before he was inaugurated, though, a day or two before, he launched a crypto scam. So I'm going to play something here for a minute and a half, and I'll screen share with you guys. Let's check this out. 1 second. Do any of you personally know anyone who bought any of the Donald Trump coin?
No.
Okay, that was kind of a joke question. I didn't think either of you were gonna say yeah, but I have the most beautiful coin. Some are saying it's the best coin. It's the most perfect coin.
I wish I got the Trump trading cards.
Oh yeah, dude. One of the cards is a special holographic chocolate covered NFT.
80% is owned by the Trump camp. Only 20% goes to the public. 10% went to the liquidity pool, and 10% went to the public allocation. Here's the rest of it. This is their website, gettrumpmemes.com. And yes, I've thought.
So basically, Trump and his partners and his family are holding most of this coin and just manipulating it. And I think it's through the sale of this cryptocurrency that Trump released, or somebody on Trump's team. I don't know. Somebody working for Donald Trump, or somebody that he employed or commissioned to do this. He's made tens of billions of dollars from this already. This puts him in the top, I think, 25 richest people in the world already, just by doing this crypto scam as he's becoming president. And one thing that's crazy too that you saw with this, along with something he did previously where he sold watches that weren't real. This is basically just ways for people to give him money and do corruption. It's just so brazen.
Thought at first this was a hack. I was like, there's no way this could be true. CIC Digital is fully owned by the Donald Trump Revocable Trust. So it's kind of unclear exactly, is he getting paid a licensing deal for this? Is he just one of the guys? It's not that clear. But let's just break down, because I think that's kind of intentional that it's not that clear. Here's the creators. Here's the allocation. So there's 6 groups who are getting the rest of the 80%, and they're all labeled very obscurely. It's just, creators in CIC Digital 1, CIC Digital 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it. That's
So this is essentially completely anonymous. That's great.
all the description we get, at least on this page. And you can see that they're not locked up at the start. They have a 3 to 12 month lockup duration, depending on the group. And basically they unlock over 24 months. That's the punchline. So over 3 years, all of this will be unlocked. This token will be diluted by the rest of that 80%. What I think is so cynical about this is that it's going to fully vest during the presidency. So it's like there's no way that they're not going to get millions of dollars out of this. They're going to extract so much value from the Trump base and degens, of course, but it's insane. It's like going to be the historic grift.
Indeed.
Like, what the fuck do you even say to this? Like, a fucking president of the United States doing a rug pull on mostly his own supporters and a bunch of crypto dorks?
Well, before his inauguration, I don't know if it was in 2025 or 2024. I think it was 2024. Jimmy Carter passed away. And
Yes.
A lot of people say that Jimmy Carter was the last honest president of the United States. I've heard this story a few times. Jimmy Carter, whenever he was running for president, he had to give up his peanut farm, right?
Yes.
Something like that. Like he had to
Yeah.
give it to someone else or sell it or whatever, because it was a conflict of interest that he could potentially be bribed through his peanut farm. And now we have a guy who just blatantly just does scams day before he's even sworn in.
Yeah, it's fucking mental.
And who was accepting bribes through his hotels while he was president. And like you said, he's gone full on into these NFTs. He was selling like a new NFT while he was on the campaign trail. It was like these Trump trading cards or something.
Yeah, what I mentioned earlier.
Well, what's crazy too is it wasn't just Trump doing this. Fucking Melania dropped a meme coin too. I mean, like, look at this.
Ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration, it is the war of meme coins between US President-elect Donald Trump and his wife Melania Trump. Donald Trump's meme coin saw a rapid rise before crashing over 50% after the launch of Melania Trump's Melania coin.
I wish this shit was a fucking joke.
Yeah, like Melania Trump then launches Melania coin and then it makes Trump coin crash. I mean, like, what the fuck do you even say about this? Like, this is just rank corruption. Anybody at this point who doesn't realize that crypto is a scam is just an idiot. Like, just complete scam nonsense. I'm like racking my brain to try and give more commentary on this, but like it's sucking in like my soul. Like I can't believe that this is the fucking world that we live in, dude. This is insane. This is like a fucking cartoon.
Aren't we spending money on crypto too?
I don't know if the United States is specifically spending money on crypto. I heard that there were talks to create like a Federal Reserve of Bitcoin, which would only serve to pump Bitcoin in the short term. Beyond that, I heard that they gave like $500 million to AI companies, or was it like $500 billion or something like that?
Yeah, it's like 500 billion to AI. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, the Chinese AI drops and then everything just fucking crashes for a few days. Bro, how are we not like living in communist conditions right now? Like we always talk, like we always shit on like communist countries like the USSR, like China, but like China has like high speed rail. We don't have anything close to that.
You seen that city where it's called like Zhangzhou or something, and it looks like cyberpunk?
No,
that place is fucking awesome. At least on the outside. I don't know, maybe living there sucks balls because they make you pray to President Xi 10 times a day, but you know, they're basically on track to do that in America at this point, so you know.
I would like suck Trump's dick if I actually got like healthcare. Like if I got like healthcare and if I got like a decent wage that could feed me and like I could buy, you know, a bunch of bullshit and you know, if I was getting paid better and if like the cost of like my rent was lower and I actually had like
completely different politician at that point. Like
yeah. If a politician actually gave me stuff like that and like my quality of life was increased, then I would be singing their praises.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They don't want to do things for the average person these days. So we have an article here from Ken Klippenstein about the presence of billionaires at Trump's inauguration. The title of the article, which was published on January 22nd, 2025, about 2 weeks ago, is "The Apostocracy Inaugurates Trump."
Can you go back up?
Yes.
Look
That
at Zuck.
picture.
Yeah. I like how they're not calling him Zuckerberg. They're calling him Zuck here in the pic. Look at Zuck here.
He zucks.
It looks like a deer in headlights with his fucking Zoomer haircut. He's like he's a 40-year-old man.
Top.
He's like a
Yeah.
Terminator. He's like photographer identified. Just like zooms in on him.
Bezos looks really bug-eyed.
Bezos looks like he saw somebody pull out like a dollar bill and he's like, smell the dollar. All right. Donald Trump was inaugurated president on Monday by a chief justice most people couldn't name or recognize. But up in the VP seats looking down like an approving collective of Greek gods were 6 tech billionaires whose companies practically everyone knows. Elon Musk of Twitter, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Instagram, Tim Cook of Apple, Sundar Pichai of Google, and Zhu Zhichu, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, but I know I'm not, of TikTok. The media has tended to focus on the net worth of this half dozen using rusty words like oligarchy, but their power penetrates much deeper than that. It is literally in my pocket as I write this. Their dominance and control over the very appliance that most now get their news and entertainment from, where they do their banking, receive their advertisements, connect with their friends, date, and buy things. Oligarchs are nothing new, but these 6 men have a power over us that is more intimate than other billionaires. They collectively build, run, and control what can only be likened to an appendage of our own human bodies, a new organ that most can't imagine losing or losing access to. I call this the apostocracy. The power these apps command is so awesome that not even their owners are fully in control. Attempts to rename the companies consistently fail. To any ordinary person, X remains Twitter, Alphabet remains Google, and Meta remains Facebook. The rebrands fail because these apps have lodged themselves so deeply in our minds that unlearning our conception of them is about as realistic as unlearning a native language. They exist in some timeless platonic realm of ideas. These companies might as well try to rebrand the concept of a tree. The path to power increasingly runs through these apps. Trump leveraged the power of Twitter to get himself elected president in 2016 before founding his own social media company, Truth Social. In 2022, Elon Musk shelled out $44 billion to buy Twitter. The eye-popping sum once drew derision. That was before Musk used Twitter to catapult himself into the center of the 2024 election discourse, into Trump's inner circle, and as an improbable to ignore figure on the world stage. TikTok illustrated the extraordinary power of the app last week. As a U.S. ban neared, public backlash grew to the point that the same politicians who voted for the ban reversed their positions. We're only in the infant stage of our fealty to the apps as a collective entity, to our smartphones and to online everything. The sociologists, anthropologists, and psychologists are only beginning to ponder the effects. Since the advent of the smartphone around 2012 or so, adolescent loneliness has skyrocketed, and that's just one example. Though we don't understand the consequences yet, the entire world economy is reforming around the apostocracy. It isn't a coincidence that these are the richest men on the planet, and yet consider this about the apostocracy economy. Despite its enormous valuation, most of its products don't exist in any physical sense. It also doesn't create anywhere near as many jobs as conventional industries. The robber barons of yesteryear, the Carnegies, the Fords, and so on, at least employed a lot of people. At least they manufactured something tangible and of use to people's lives. The apostocracy doesn't do anything to improve healthcare, housing, or education. Their contribution to infrastructure amounts to building more energy facilities to power their data centers and fuel their artificial intelligence empires. Like jealous gods, these apps demand constant sacrifices, our time, our attention, even our relationship. We are told we are saving time through the products of the apostocracy, and yet we have no time. They've hollowed out the malls, stores, and other public spaces, even ourselves, as we spend more time alone. Call it the hologarchy. Donald Trump took the oath of office on Monday alongside the apostocracy, but it would be a mistake to see this as a mere transactional relationship, which many have diagnosed it. I'm afraid it is much worse than that. The apostocracy has accumulated such wealth and power through their creation and operation of this new bodily organ, this phantom limb, that even megalomaniacs like Trump feel compelled to pay homage. Old school oligarchs couldn't dream of that kind of power. Very, very good article from the illustrious Ken Klippenstein. Shout out. Any thoughts on that one before we move on to the next one? Because we got a lot to cover today.
Makes me think about how often I'm, on a screen or,
Yeah.
And the part about like, hey, we used to actually go out in public and go to stores and socialize at like the mall or like go to the park or just walk around and talk to each other. I do feel like that part's true.
Oh, 100%.
It's just like a really cruel, deliberate way of just subverting the masses.
Making us all lonely and atomized.
Yeah, it's definitely their intention, I feel like.
Oh, 100%. They want us distracted, and they want us at each other's throats constantly.
Yep.
So how would you suggest, actually getting away from your screen, being a part of the community, just disconnecting, touching grass?
Just do it.
Just do it. Just put the phone down.
If it's harder if you don't have any friends and you don't have a partner. But if you have a partner, it's like, go on a date. If it's nice outside, go have a picnic. If you have a little bit of money and you feel like it, go out to dinner. I don't know, go see a movie. Like, you don't have to spend money, but you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of times you go out on a date, maybe you go do something. But you could always just like, go have a bike ride or something, or hang out with your friends and play a game of D&D. Even just hanging out with your friends and just chatting, and catching up.
Meditate.
I will say this: if you are a lonely adult male, and you don't have any friends, like you move to a new city, for instance, try it. Like my advice would be like, get a dog. Get a dog. That dog has needs. Take care of the dog. Take the dog to a park. And I guarantee people will come up to talk to you about your dog. And that's like a portal to actually socializing with people. I know this from experience. It's like when I lived in Florida, I moved from like my home state, didn't know anyone around me. And I ended up actually making like a few contacts with people there, while I spent most of my time, like 90% of my time, I spent working from home. So
yeah. My personal advice would be like a few quick things, but it all ties together, is like, don't put expectations onto other people when you're trying to make friends. Just allow things to happen. Always have backup plans so that if people cancel plans when you're trying to make friends with people, that you always have something else to do. Don't take that stuff personally. Don't get too in your head, and just be a genuine person, and don't try and fake anything about yourself, because people will, clue in at some point.
Yeah, and like I know, like being in your mid-20s, like after you get out of school, after you get out of college, that is the loneliest time in your life.
It really is. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. Don't spend all your time cooped up in your house, posting on the internet and playing video games. Don't obsess over other people on the internet. Try not to isolate yourself in too rural of a community where you can't go out and easily do things. Don't soy out on the Cinemassacre Truth subreddit.
And then get mobbed on r/.
Yeah.
Don't openly complain about people trying to cancel you on Reddit. Don't shave your hairline back 3 inches so that you can attempt to make a haircut that looks like the Critical Drinker.
Yeah, don't scream in your public gym and then complain about people complaining about you screaming.
Yeah, startling an old woman on a treadmill.
Don't startle elderly people at the gym.
Yeah.
Just some general tips for making friends and winning people over and whatnot.
Yeah.
So this article here, I'm not gonna read any details about where it's from, because they paywalled it and I had to use a paywall remover, so go fuck yourself. Trump has reeled in more than $200 million since Election Day. And this is from a few weeks ago. This is like around the time he got inaugurated, but still important to talk about. The president-elect has boasted about the donations for his inauguration, library, and political activities from those seeking favor or perhaps, in some cases, atonement. Since his victory in November, President-elect Donald J. Trump and his allies have raised well over $200 million. It is a staggering sum that underscores efforts by donors and corporate interests to curry favor with Mr. Trump ahead of a second presidential term, after a number of business leaders denounced him following the violence by his supporters at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Mr. Trump has promised to gut the deep state, and made various promises to industry supporters. Among the pledged donors for the inaugural events are Pfizer, OpenAI, Amazon, and Meta. Yeah, they gave him a fuck ton of money, along with cryptocurrency firms. Shocking. The total haul for the committee financing his inaugural festivities, at least $150 million raised with more expected, will eclipse the record-setting $107 million raised for his 2017 inauguration, according to 3 people briefed on the matter who requested anonymity because they were not authorized to share internal financial information. It is a time-honored DC tradition that corporations are enthusiastically embracing this cycle in all manners, largely because they are on the sidelines. They no longer have to hedge their political bets. It's a pretty long article. We won't necessarily read the whole thing here, but one question that I want to raise is where did all the money go? Because they had a closed off inside a building inauguration, not the kind of outdoor one they usually do. So how is this not just outright fucking corruption? How is this allowed is the question, because this is just brazen, outright corruption on the scale of hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's it's crazy you say that, because I was thinking 200. It was 200 million, right?
Over 200 million, yes.
Yeah, over 200 million, and that's not with his crypto scams. His
no, yeah. That's the money that was raised for his inauguration.
Raised for his inauguration. I don't.
Where did the money go? What's being done with this money? Just kind of throwing that question out there.
I'm just speechless, honestly.
Same.
The rich get richer and the poor get fucking poorer.
I imagine at the inauguration when the cameras turned off, Trump went into a back room with Zuck and everyone else, and they just had a giant McDonald's spread like that one time they brought the football players to the White House and they just 1,000 Big Macs.
Or that scene in The Dark Knight where the Joker has this giant pile of money. It's here's your half, here's my half. He just burns his half.
We're building a McDonald's in the White House, and Zuckerberg's going to pay for it. Extra Big Mac sauce, because that's my favorite. So, briefly talk about this. There's definitely a solid argument to be made that this is also corruption. I think it's more understandable why Biden did this, but bad precedents being set nonetheless. Biden pardons his family and other potential Trump targets. So we have a couple articles here because I want to read some of the names of people that he pardoned, but it's people in his family. And let's see. General Mark Milley, members of the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and if you look at there's other people as well.
These people haven't actually committed crimes yet, right? These people just can't be prosecuted because of the executive, because of the order that Biden gave, right?
Yeah, it's kind of preemptive pardon.
Yeah.
He also pardoned, I think Joe Biden either pardoned himself or everyone in his immediate family except himself. He pardoned Hunter. He pardoned his wife, Jill, other people in his family as well. But there's another article here.
Well, there's no point in pardoning Biden.
Wait, hold up. So there's actually another layer to this. That's why I have this article from Politico here. So, headline, Biden said his pardon of family was meant to shield them from Trump. That's not the full story. Jim Biden's activities have been investigated in recent years in 2 federal criminal probes, as Politico has reported. Joe Biden cast his last-minute pardons of family members merely as an effort to shield them from the retribution of Donald Trump. In reality, his brother, serial entrepreneur Jim Biden, had already come under scrutiny from investigators in Biden's own Justice Department. It's the Biden crime family, y'all. In addition to calls from Republicans in Congress to prosecute him for allegedly lying to congressional impeachment investigators, Jim Biden's activities have been investigated in recent years in 2 federal criminal probes. As Politico previously reported, Jim Biden, who is 75, has not been accused of criminal wrongdoing in those cases. Both investigations deal with a now bankrupt hospital operator, AmeriCorps, that Jim Biden worked with in the years between his older brother's vice presidency and presidency. Oh, what's this? It is not clear where existing DOJ probes might have led before Monday's pardons. Joe Biden's 11th hour issuance of a blanket pardon protects his brother not only from Trump's revenge, but also from ordinary inquiries into his business activities. In one case, the Justice Department has for years been investigating schemes to defraud Medicare and other government health care programs that occurred in part of an AmeriCorps hospital in Pennsylvania. In a recording of a 2023 conversation reviewed by Politico, one of Jim Biden's associates, Mississippi healthcare executive Keaton Langston, said he misled Justice Department investigators when he was questioned about some of Jim Biden's contacts with AmeriCorps. Langston, then facing prosecution, said on the recording that he could have improved his own negotiating position with the government if I'd have just told the truth about Jimmy Biden, but did not explain how. Last May, Langston pled guilty to his role in a $51 million healthcare fraud. His sentencing is scheduled for June 26th. So Langston, not protected by this. Jim Biden, because he's related to Joe Biden, is protected. Paul Fishman, a lawyer for Jim Biden and his wife Sarah Biden, who was also pardoned, said his clients had no criminal liability. Jim and Sarah Biden did not seek this pardon because they have never... Wait, what? This is weird. This is worded very weird. Jim and Sarah Biden did not seek this pardon because they have never committed any crimes. But for the reasons the president described, they have accepted it. That's some lawyer fucking talk there. The article goes on here and details the case, but the whole Biden crime family thing might actually be more accurate than any of us know.
Yeah, that's crazy because the only thing you hear from right wingers is all the talk about like a Hunter and like the laptop scandal.
Because they're idiots.
He's a drug addict. Yeah. Like there's no real there. You know, it's just it's a crackhead son of the president. Like, who gives a shit?
And the people who are smart enough to potentially make this into a story, they don't give a shit because they are doing corruption and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to get people riled up about that because then it'll move the target more towards them.
Yeah, they like Jim Biden. Jim Biden actually plays ball, but Hunter doesn't actually do anything of substance.
He's the scapegoat,
Yeah.
So this is a story from The Intercept here. Trump's anti-trans executive order is unscientific nonsense. So there were a lot of executive orders that Trump pushed through on like his first and second day within the last 2 weeks. He's been doing more stuff, but we can't really talk about all of them. But the anti-trans executive order and the other weird stuff is very strange. So President Donald Trump's flurry of executive orders signed on his first day back in the White House are riddled with illegal and unconstitutional demands. The order aimed at eradicating trans and gender nonconforming people is no exception and bears the added honor of spouting unscientific nonsense. It is a bizarre, wide-ranging document premised on a pseudoscientific definition of binary sex classification that would be impossible to implement to the letter in everyday life. The order would not stand up to scientific scrutiny or sound legal challenge, but it's not designed to. It is, like most of Trump's illegal executive orders, a political speech act intended to sow fear, give license to discrimination, and make life for marginalized communities materially harder. The text is worth interrogating, however, insofar as it reveals the Trump administration's brute force approach to pushing trans people out of public life, couched in an unambiguously pro-natalist rhetoric and the risible claim that is defending women. In the current preferred lexicon of anti-trans campaigners, long desperate to point to something immutable in science to ground their delusional rejections of trans existence on. The executive order says, it is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental reality. The order then defines male and female as follows. Female means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the large reproductive cell. Male means a person belonging at conception to the sex that produces the small reproductive cell. Observers were swift to note that by adding at conception, the order bundles in a notion of fetal personhood, a nod to the fact that attacks on gender nonconformity are part and parcel of a pro-natalist agenda, which requires attacks on all reproductive freedoms. It is no accident that the definitions of male and female are centered solely on reproductive function. The definition is also senseless. At conception, embryos are not sexually differentiated, and at conception, fetuses are also not producing reproductive cells or gametes, large or small. But the definition need not make scientific or practical sense to appease gender conformity fanatics. Since this language has now made its way into Trump's executive order, it's worth stressing the profound intellectual weakness of such a definition. Anti-trans ideologues have glommed onto the languages of gametes because their previous reliance on chromosomes, XX and XY, didn't do the anti-trans rhetorical work they wanted. There were too many examples outside the chromosomal binary, like intersex variations, to contend with. Gametes seem to do the trick for those transphobes who demand that sex be understood as immutable, something of the body that cannot be changed, and more strictly binary. Secondary sex characteristics like breasts, body hair, hormone levels, and shape of genitalia are not so clearly split between those assigned female and male at birth. Crucially, there are also sex traits that trans people can indeed obtain. Transphobes thus treat gametes or reproductive cells as some sort of definitional gotcha. It is not. And then it goes on to talk about how not everyone produces reproductive cells. A lot of this has been described before. A lot of this crap has been debunked. And it's frustrating to me. I'll shout out again, that article is from The Intercept from January 22nd. So check that out if you want to read the rest of it. But it's extremely fucked up, like what's effectively going on. Like I was seeing reports the other day that people in American prisons, trans people are being, in some instances, like forcibly detransitioned and sent to prisons that correspond with, like a men's prison for somebody who's male to female, for example. It is basically horrifying. Like what Trump is trying to do and what the people around Trump are trying to do is essentially create like concentration camps for trans people, for immigrants. I feel like we've kind of reached a point where America is like kind of undeniably becoming kind of Nazi-esque. Like, I don't know. What do you both think?
Without a doubt. I mean, we've gone backwards. And in fact, less than an hour ago, Trump just signed an executive order to ban trans athletes from sports.
I saw something the other day that detailed how many trans athletes there actually are in America, and they're talking about like
a small number. Like,
I mean, it was like less than 1,000 people.
I was, and
they're talking about
thousands.
They're talking. I could be wrong on this, but I think they were talking about like actual professional athletes and notable people who are affected by like anti-trans laws for like schools and school extracurricular sports and stuff like that. In some states, these laws are being passed and they affect like 2 people in the entire state that are like trans and want to do sports. It's fucking bizarre to say the least.
It's unhinged. Like,
did you hear about them dropping the Q and the T in all like the government documents?
Yeah. They also what is it? Trump demanded that they remove their pronouns in their emails.
Yeah, a lot of organizations have removed pronouns. They've been forced to remove any inclusive language from their programs. They've been forced to remove anything that acknowledges trans people or trans healthcare. It's absolutely like there's a lot more that we could talk about in this specific topic. But there was another thing I wanted to mention too. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. Like you said, they removed like LGBTQ. They have reduced it to like LGB. So like they're not acknowledging trans, non-binary people or any of that. Like they're only acknowledging lesbian people, gay people, and bisexual people as real.
Yeah, anything
like
that has to do with any form of like gender.
This reminds me of a lot of the anti-trans stuff that the Nazis did, where they like burned down hospitals doing like trans research and stuff like that in the early 20th century, and murdered people who were doing stuff like that.
Book burning.
Yeah, I mean, the book burning thing has essentially been done over the last 5 to 6 years in the American education system. I mean, they weren't outright burning books, but they were effectively doing the same thing by just removing them completely from schools, libraries, whatnot. You know, just you can't read any of these books. You're not allowed to talk about any of these things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All of those like the PTA meetings where like all the parents, like they weren't even parents. They were just people from like other towns like coming into like these school board meetings.
Matt Walsh did that famously.
Yeah. And just complaining about like random books that they found in like a school library.
Yeah, Matt Walsh did that, and he didn't even have any kids in like the district he went to. It was just nonsense.
He homeschools his kids.
Yeah, that alone is just a fucking like homeschooling should not be allowed. I'm sorry. That alone,
I agree.
That alone is just nonsense. Like, you as a dumbass fucking almost certainly religious fundamentalist parent do not have the ability to actually teach your kids these things properly. Every single person I've known that was homeschooled by religious fanatic parents who refused to actually teach them anything about the real world. I can't say who, but I knew somebody who told me when they were like almost 20 years old, like, yeah, I didn't know until a couple of years ago that like other countries existed. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, my parents just like didn't teach me anything because I was homeschooled. It's like, what the fuck? Like that shit should just be not allowed. Like, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. Go fuck yourself. It's always religious fanatics who want to do that shit. And it's always for nefarious reasons.
I was just going to ask, this person didn't have access to like the internet, to books.
Well, when your parents control everything, they can stop you from looking at that shit. I don't know the full story, but
it was probably like, yeah, one of those religious fundamentalist house that like don't even have TV in their home.
I knew somebody when I was I knew somebody when I was younger who was not allowed to have TV. I think they were allowed to have books, but they weren't allowed to read fiction. They were only allowed to read like about historical things like World War II that happened. It was, I don't know, dude. It was just bizarre.
Your friend, like, they were never reading like any kind of book that mentioned like England or like Germany or.
This is a different friend that I'm talking about.
I'm just saying though, like the friend that didn't know that other countries exist only thought the United States was a thing. That or Canada was a thing.
Yeah, no, they were Canadian. Yeah.
That's they didn't read books then.
I don't know the intricate details of like what books they may have been reading or whatnot. Like I mentioned it a second ago, a friend who was only allowed to read nonfiction. That was a different friend. But I've seen all sorts of like crazy, like I knew a kid when I was younger who like people were not allowed over at his house. And like there were all these crazy rules that his parents, like I've known some fucking weird ass kids when I was younger. And I've known some like really cool people who just had like really strange, fucked up families and childhoods. But you do not understand the amount of brainwashing that can be implemented by a parent onto their children until you see it in person, and it fucks with your head. You're like, you do not know what is going on like at all in the world. I think it breaks people's brains when they're raised like that, and then they go into the real world and they learn all this shit. They just can't handle it a lot of the time.
I knew a few people who were raised Pentecostal, like very, very religious, and they eventually go to university, and their brain just explodes, like their head explodes.
Yeah.
Just because of how much freedom they have. They don't have their parent over their shoulder constantly. And a lot of these, some of these students end up like flunking out because they don't have that like strict parental figure over them 24/7.
A lot of them also crash out because they've never been allowed to like do drugs or have sex or hang out with people and go to parties.
Yeah, some of the Pentecostals I'm talking about also started doing that too.
Yep.
Like, they started drinking, smoking, having sex, and it's like imagine like you've never drank water before, you know?
Yeah. So another thing, we don't have to necessarily go into the article here because it would take too long, but the Trump administration has offered roughly 2 million federal workers in the USA a buyout to just resign.
I heard this was a scam. Like they weren't actually going to give you the money, but they wanted you to resign or to.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's Trump. How many people has he stiffed out of?
They want you to resign or retire, and they said that they were going to give you so much money for doing it.
Yeah, they said that they'd like continue paying you for a bit and whatnot.
Doesn't that sound like a waste of money to completely get rid of your infrastructure, your workers?
I mean, this is being
give them money to do it.
This type of stuff is being spearheaded by Elon Musk, who famously bought Twitter in like one of the worst deals of all time. I mean, as we were talking about earlier in the podcast, like for his goals, maybe it was worth it, but economically, it was a terrible deal in terms of purely making money from it. At least so far, we could see. But yeah, I mean, just more bullshit. I also don't have any articles here to talk about it, but it's been all over the news, so we need to address it before going forward. Trump and the Trump administration not only tried to do this thing that we just mentioned, where they're telling people to resign, they were going to pay them and whatnot, basically just trying to buy people out so they can reduce the amount of federal workers in the government. This is all part of like the DOGE thing, the Department of Government Efficiency that we mentioned in a previous podcast. I think Vivek has been kicked out of it for being too annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about Urkel too much.
I think he ran for governor in Ohio.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the important part, though. The important part, though, is that they pretty much immediately were slashing, hiring, and trying to fire people. And one of those government organizations that they were fucking around with was the FAA. Basically, since Trump has taken over, in about 2 weeks, there's been half a dozen plane crashes and runway incidents where people have died or been injured.
It's been
I saw
3
somebody-
plane crashes I've heard so far.
Oh, it's more than that at this point.
Really?
Yes. Actually go look into it. They're trying to cover up a bunch of them. Not just plane crashes, but basically things happening on runways where planes are crashing into tugs and things like that. Helicopters crashing into planes crashing. Tons of fucked up shit going on right now.
Oh no, dude, it's DEI.
Yeah, and they're trying to blame it on DEI. It was really funny. Trump was getting questioned by this one reporter, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. President, thanks for taking my question. I just want to ask, so a lot of these DEI things are being done since 2013, 2017, so you could have done something about it the last time you were president. My question is, why didn't you?" And he got so fucking mad.
Yeah, he got so mad that he kicked out all the regular news agencies, and now OAN and all the internet news outlets are now coming to replace them, right?
Mm-hmm. So we have to talk about Doge again in a second, but the fucking airline thing is crazy because it reminds me, a lot of this stuff reminds me of the movie Idiocracy, where he wakes up in the future and planes are fucking falling out of the sky and everyone's really fucking stupid and they can barely speak. I feel like we are moving towards an Idiocracy style future. And the funny thing is in that movie, a fucking reality television star celebrity becomes the president. That is essentially Trump. Except in Idiocracy, that guy was probably more competent than Donald Trump.
Yeah, he was a lot more qualified. He at least listened to the smart people in his administration.
Yeah.
To try and reverse the new Dust Bowl. I can imagine Trump signing an executive order. It's we got to put Gatorade on the crops. Make them grow better. It's what they crave. It's what they crave.
Yeah, I showed that movie to my girlfriend recently, and I was like, "Oh, you haven't seen Idiocracy? That movie's so great," and she really enjoyed it. Yeah. And one thing, because I was looking up reviews, I want to see what people thought of it in current year, and somebody was really mad about it. But one thing that they said that was funny was they said, "This movie is extremely unrealistic, as we can see." These days, they would not actually try and find somebody smart to solve their problems. That's totally unrealistic when you think about it. Because all these fucking idiots are convinced that they're geniuses, like Trump and Elon. Why would I find somebody, why would I try and find somebody who's smarter than me to solve my problems? I'm the smartest person in the world. I'm a genius.
No. Think about it, though. Think about it. That's what he thinks Elon is. That's what Trump thinks Elon is. He thinks that Elon's the super boy genius.
Yeah, some people have been speculating that Trump is actually, I don't know if this is the case, but some people have been speculating that Trump is actually worried about disconnecting and disengaging with Elon because he thinks that Elon might be and people are saying this, so take it with a grain of salt. People are saying oh, maybe Trump thinks that Elon is actually a genius and that he helped him win the election and that he's going to help him become the greatest president of all time. Like you said, he just sees him as an egghead, I'm gonna have this smart guy and he's gonna tell me all the smart things that I need to do.
There was a guy who posted once. I've heard a lot of people quote it. It was a guy said, "Yeah, when I listened to Elon talk about electric vehicles, I thought he was a genius. When I heard Elon talk about transportation, I thought he was a genius. But when I heard him talk about programming, I realized that he was full of shit. And then I thought, okay, he must be full of shit on the other things."
Yeah, most people aren't willing to go that far, though. People, I've noticed a lot of business people particularly, they think that Elon Musk is awesome just because he has a lot of money. And they don't interrogate or investigate anything else. You tell them, no, Elon Musk is actually a Nazi. And in their mind, they're well, he's famous, and they don't let famous people be Nazis, so he can't be a Nazi. It's
show
the most
picture of show the video of the inauguration where he's literally Sieg Heiling not once but twice.
No, these people are so fucking stupid and arrogant that they won't look at that and go oh wait, yeah, he's a Nazi. They'll just go, "Oh, you think that was a Nazi salute? Oh, what are you doing? You watching CNN? You listening to the woke media?"
I thought the funniest reaction was the Patrick Bet David reaction.
The Valuetainment podcast. It's literally just one long fucking scam, fucking telemarketing session.
they were having a hard time like reconciling that it wasn't a Nazi salute. They were like, Elon, you're a super genius, but maybe comedy isn't your thing. Maybe public speaking isn't your thing. Maybe you should leave that to guys like us.
Oh man. So we'll come back to talking about Elon and Doge in a moment here. But we have to talk about this whole Trump trying to buy Greenland thing.
Oh, dude, this is so fucking stupid. And in part of this article, is there part of it where they talk about like how Eric Trump and I think JD Vance they went up to Greenland and they like hired homeless people to like hold "Make America Great Again" signs and like wear Trump hats.
Yeah, that shit was crazy. And I think people in like the government, like the Danish government or the government in Greenland, had to come out and be like, yeah, this was bullshit. Those are like homeless people.
Yeah, you offered them a hot meal at a hotel.
Yeah. Like it's actually insane that all of this information about this is out there, but we live in a post-truth world where not only is it extremely difficult to get people to even accept that this is like what's going on, but people will never see a lot of this stuff because mainstream media doesn't actually report on it. And we're entering an era where a lot of them are trying to be fair and balanced. So, you'll never see reporting like this because this is actually like the reality of what's going on. But if you talk about this type of stuff, people will just be like, oh, you're an Elon Musk hater. Whoa, 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 whoa. No. And they'll try and frame it in like this very, very kind of like tribalistic way. And, somebody who is, for example, maybe trying to criticize this podcast might, say all sorts of things. But the one thing that they're going to not talk about is the fact that we criticized Joe Biden and talked about the Biden crime family earlier, because in their world, everything is hyper partisan, but they don't seem to understand that like, that's not how a lot of us really look at this stuff and think about it. They'll be like, lock up Joe Biden. It's like, yeah, lock up Joe Biden, lock up Donald Trump too. And wait, not that.
They treat it like team sports.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the only content they really look for is hate content for like the other side.
Yeah,
they don't look at good like the only way that they know that like Trump does anything good ever typically is like if they see like a Facebook meme about it. You don't ever I live in a red state. I don't hear like any Trumpers talking about like this Greenland thing. I don't think that they really know about it or really care.
They probably think it's awesome.
I don't hear them talk about it in a positive way. I don't hear them talking about it at all, honestly.
We got to talk about for a second just how stupid the average Trump voter is. Have you ever heard about med beds?
No.
So this is kind of like QAnon overlap type stuff, but there are people in the US that like will post stuff like Donald Trump has introduced 23rd century technology, introducing med beds. American citizens can get into a med bed and it will cure you of cancer and every other ailment. Like it's complete scam stuff. Like they're talking about like the movie Elysium where you can like get into a fucking bed and it will like reconstruct your arm and cure your cancer and, remove the herpes from your blood and whatnot. But these things just don't exist. And there are people like posting online like, Donald Trump, please, when will you bring med beds to Gary, Indiana? And it's like, it's not a thing. It doesn't exist.
Schizo fucking cult.
Yeah, like, when you really think about it, there is close to 500 million people living in the United States. Think about how dumb a lot of those people are. Like, just think about how dumb a lot of those people are. And then
the average IQ in the U.S. is like 98. It's not too far from being a triple digit IQ.
That sounds too high. The thing is, though, you really have to realize that your perception of how dumb most people are is an overestimation of their intelligence. Like think about how dumb somebody like Josh Saunders is. That's actually way more people than you might think.
That's like most of Casper, probably.
Yeah, and think about all the little towns outside of the big cities. That's a lot of them.
Yep. I've lived in a few of those towns. I don't think that they're that dumb. I would say that maybe they're ignorant, especially about stuff like related to like politics. But I wouldn't necessarily call them I wouldn't necessarily call them stupid.
Stupid subjective.
Listen,
But yeah,
There's a lot of small towns in the U.S. with people where, you know, you get along with them, and that's carrying a lot of weight there on the conversation. If you get along with them, they might seem nice to you, but do not confuse the ability to get along with people and like work a day job with intelligence. These people are dumb as fuck. I've lived in many small towns too, and although some people in them might, you know, have a little hospitality and know how to cook and know how to work on a car or whatever, they're dumb as shit. You ask them about things that are going on in the world, they don't know fuck all. You ask them about this or that, they don't know fuck all. They're trying to think of like a word that they're like, oh fuck, it's on the tip of my tongue, and it's like a word that like fourth graders learn in like their fucking vocabulary class. Like, these are dumb fucking people. When you look back, like there actually used to be, seemingly at some point, maybe this is just, you know, historical revisionism, but seemed like there used to be a higher standard for intelligence. At least there used to be an aspiration for a higher standard of intelligence, but it doesn't seem like that exists anymore. It's like when you look at culture, when you look at politics, when you look at just like different groups of friends that you've probably hung out with, you don't like, you have to parlay things like intelligence and ability a lot of the times. Like, those things are not outright respected or things that people really aspire to. And I think a huge part of that is that everybody wants to be like the main character now. People want to be smart, they want to be cool, they want to have everything, and they don't want to compromise on anything. And I think a huge part of that comes from like the entitlement that is kind of injected into your fucking brain from a young age. As an iPad kid that has access to the internet and has a fucking lazy ass parent that doesn't want to tell them no and just acquiesces to them bitching and moaning, never teaches them a life lesson. You know, maybe I'm going off on a little bit of a rant here, but I think people just need to be a little more present in the moment, think about what they're doing a little bit more, maybe have some goals or ambitions, and kind of, I don't know, maybe pay attention. Like, one thing that's really funny, I'll kind of leave this little kind of, I don't know, digression or whatever here, is that so many people these days have been coming to me because of like what they're seeing kind of happening generally politically with like the US and Canada, particularly because, you know, I live in Canada, and they're coming to me and like asking me to tell them information on like political stuff, and they're basically asking me to like give them an opinion that they can adopt. And I'll just straight up tell people like, okay, I'll give you like information on like where to look for some of this information, and I'll tell you like some cursory stuff, but like I'm like, you gotta like look into this. Like, I can't give you a political opinion. I've had people on like one or two occasions literally tell me like, all right, whose side are we on? Like, who do we like? Like, who, kind of like we were talking about earlier, like whose team are we on?
yeah.
And it's like, I can't tell you that. I can tell you what my opinion is, but I can't just like import a political agenda and opinion into your brain.
Well,
Like, you have to have some sort of like fucking agency here, you know?
Well, that's more of like it's more of what I'm trying to say is that most people are politically checked out. They only really care about politics when shit starts to hit the fan, or like it's an election cycle.
They want to be
Or
checked
when
in, but they
something-
don't want to take the time to actually like achieve that.
Yeah, but everyone has like roles and responsibilities and stuff. Like, you can't always be checked in.
That's kind of what I'm saying, though. Like, everybody wants to be the jock, the nerd, the political junkie, the fucking millionaire, the starving artist, and all this all at once. Like, it's like rich people who are like, actually, you know, I grew up and my parents were broke, and it's like, oh no, your dad owned an emerald mine. Like, just be the rich person. Like, you don't have to be the fucking, it's like Elon. He wants to be like epic #1 Diablo player in the world, while also being like the richest man in the world. Like, he wants to be all these things. It's like, just be like the political junkie. Just be like the guy that loves vinyl records. Like, you don't have to be all these different things. I don't know. I don't know what is causing this drive to want to be like, I don't know, like the human almanac or whatever. I don't know what it is.
Well, that's ego.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna say it's
100%.
narcissism. Yeah, it definitely fuels it.
You're right about that. It is ego and narcissism. But my question is, what is driving it to what is driving it in a sense that like is it just that like everyone is being encouraged to be narcissistic now? I guess is that it? Like a narcissistic egomaniac? Is it social media? Like what is causing it?
Yeah, we just read an article about how we spend too much time on our phones. We're not really, we're not touching grass. We're not going outside. We're not talking to people. And we're on these apps that are controlled by these oligarch billionaires that drip feed us information and ban information that they don't want us to hear. So I can understand why the average person doesn't have a political opinion, because they're being fed either bullshit or they're being fed a distraction.
Like politically agnostic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people, like, hey, I go to a 9 to 5. I spend most of my time working with a boss over my back. I don't have time to and then I have to clean. I have to take care of my kids. I have to do all of this stuff. And then maybe I get a little bit of time for my hobbies. I don't think that the average American is dumb. I think that the average American is, I think they are average. You might say like mediocre. But I just, I don't feel like, I feel like everyone does have some goal or ambition. So I do know people who do not have that. Like if we're talking about, like,
let me say
people
this quick. I don't think it's unique to America. I think that it's definitely a problem that Canada has too, but the cultures aren't, a one-to-one comparison. But go ahead with what you're saying. Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah, there are people who are just, burnouts, from a very early age. Like we were talking about, like people like in in Casper, Wyoming, for instance. You hang or some of the people, like if you're like a teenager, sometimes like when you're a teenager, you'll find a bunch of druggies that you hang out with, and that they're not going to go anywhere. That they're not going to do shit with their fucking lives. But like just saying that's reflective of like a large portion, of a population. I just don't think that.
I'll say this. Maybe you could say it's anecdotal, but like that's what I'm seeing. But there's a lot of biases that could account for that in terms of like, you're not seeing certain people because they're at home or they're at work or they're somewhere doing more responsible things. So fair point. I'll meet you somewhere halfway in the middle between the two positions.
I will say this.
Maybe it's not as many people as I think. Yeah.
I have met some dumbass people. I have met some brain dead people in my life, but for the most part, I do think that there is like I feel like most people have two brain cells to rub together.
Fair enough. When you were talking about people having goals or ambitions, I've known quite a few people, and I've gotten very frustrated talking to them about this, where they think they have a goal or ambition, but they really don't. They have like a nebulous idea that they're grasping at.
They have
one of the most
of a plan.
Well, one of the most common things that pretty much everybody can understand, and I think it'll kind of click in your mind what I'm talking about here and make sense when I give this example, is somebody who wants to just be rich, but they don't have a product that they want to invent. They have no method in their mind of how they're going to get there. They don't have like, something they want to share with the world that might propel them into like being a famous artist. They don't have anything besides the desire for power and wealth so that they can just live a life of comfort and ease and luxury and decadence. That kind of person. That kind of person, most often than not, is just a boring or awful, contemptible person because they have no imagination, they have no curiosity, they have no creative drive, they have nothing. And those are a lot of the types of people who can easily be brainwashed by political propaganda because they're not really living for anything, so they'll fall for anything.
As someone who wants to, I don't know, just win the lottery and build a clock tower dream house.
Precisely, yeah. I was thinking of bringing that up, but I thought I'd try and make the point without bringing up Josh again.
I was thinking of Jared when he like said that he was going to be like a millionaire or whatever.
It's the same type of thing.
I feel like Josh though is the perfect representation of the kind of person you're talking about, and
he is, yeah.
But there is some aspect to Josh that I will say is isn't so NPC-ish. Is his passions, and he actually has ways of making money.
He has some quirks.
Yeah. It's not like it's making him a shit ton of money, but he's basically like living the dream right now, or at least whatever dream that that he could think of.
The bog dream.
Yeah,
It's like
he
that-
just rotting
Like
a
that
trailer.
one Bogtron, or not Bogtron. It's the one Clamp's Basement edit, the synthwave one, where it's like, Cobra, your entire life is just like an easy ride, yet all you do is fucking complain and bitch and moan. Like, you're a fucking idiot.
I will say though, he has had some creative projects that I thought were pretty nice. Like the rap album, I thought was pretty nice. And
Well, that gave us Cobra's Cantina, so yeah.
Yeah, Cobra's Cantina. Yeah, so he has released some music that you cannot deny is pretty good. At least in a bad way. Something that gets stuck
it's
in your head and
entertaining.
yeah.
This is true.
So I will say that even idiots have some may have some redeeming quality.
Depending on the idiot.
Yeah. If they are like a complete NPC background character with no ideas of their own, just concepts of ideas, maybe that just go through their everyday life.
I think it's Crisp. Crisp.
Wanting to be a popular YouTube gaming content creator, but like not actually having any enthusiasm for video games, at least none that translates onto the screen when you try and make content. Yeah, that's a good example.
Yep.
He wants to be he wants to be that, and he also wants to be like this alt-right guy, just like memeing on the lefties at the same time, even though it's like optically cancerous to his goal of becoming a famous YouTuber.
He just like parrots like Nazi jokes. Basically, he doesn't come up with anything of his own. Like,
And the thing is, they're not even funny. The jokes he tells, they're not even funny in any way.
Yeah. Sam Hyde has the capacity to be funny despite being a piece of shit.
Oh yeah.
Like, Chris just doesn't have anything. Like,
Yeah, I've said it.
no ability.
I've said it at least a few times before, but people like Chris are held back from being funny, not just by like lacking an ability to like do comedy, but they're so fucking mad that even if they were good at comedy, them seething more than anything comes through in the writing. And you're just like, oh my God, this person is so ass mad. And it just kind of like becomes like a self-own, because like, let's be honest, at least in the world of like internet trolling and like online back and forth shit flinging, if you get mad and you're just like seething that hard, you have already lost. That's why a lot of the times, like I don't even respond to his bullshit, because it's just like, bro, like I don't even need to do anything. You're like Glass Joe, you just came out into the boxing ring and just punched yourself in the face and fell over. Like, all right, I guess I win by default.
You you just let him tie himself with his own fucking rope, because he'll just like type a manifesto about you and shit. Like,
He'll make a post talking about Jew Crane or something, and it's like,
is this a real fucking person?
yeah, dude. That post where some random person was like, man, you suck at this game. And he's like, you are a Ukrainian bot. Fuck you. I actually just started playing the game, so I'm a noob. I'm a noob. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've beaten Contra or whatever on NES. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, two different games from two different eras of gaming.
We were going to talk about Doge, but that's all the time we have to talk about the stuff for tonight.
Yeah,
fucking Doge.
We'll leave that for next time. Talk about how Elon's looting the U.S. Treasury and stealing every American citizen's personal information.
dude, I'm moving to Mexico.
Like Ethan Randolph.
Maybe like I've seen some of like the people walking around Mexico. Like I was watching this woman and she was saying, "Oh, you guys get your chicken at the supermarket. This is how I get my chicken." And she literally goes to a guy butchering it at like a local market.
Damn.
And it's cheaper than like Walmart chicken, even adjusted for like USD.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, fuck. Yeah, maybe I should go visit Ralph.
Go hang out with Ethan and Ralph in Mexico.
You know, he's actually in rehab right now. So
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's gonna go well.
Does he still have money?
No, that's why he's in Mexico.
He's gonna walk out of rehab like, I feel like a new man, and then he's gonna pass a garbage can, and he's gonna hear like a voice emanating from the garbage. He's
It's gonna have Xannies and cheeseburgers and like a bottle of
Yeah.
Maker's Mark.
There's gonna be a cheeseburger, and as he picks it up, that half-eaten garbage can cheeseburger, he's like, one last bite before I go clean. He's gonna pick it up, and there's gonna be a bottle of pills under the cheeseburger when he picks it up. And he's like, God damn it, I can't quit you. And he just picks it up and shakes it, and then walks away, puts it in his pocket. And it's like,
Yeah, and
Ethan
then
Ralph.
under that are like legal papers served to him by like Harry Morris, or not Harry Morris, Matthew Vickers.
yeah. Anyways, that's all we have for tonight. Thanks to the both of you for coming on and doing another one of these. Another one.
No
of the day.
problem.
We do one of these at this point like every few weeks in terms of
Yeah.
like when I get around to like editing it and putting it out. Although I have some tools now that'll make it faster. But
Yeah, make the audio better.
yes,
Hell yeah.
I've
Well,
been
hey,
working
I
on
gotta
that.
go. Take it
All
easy,
right.
y'all.
Take it
Peace.
easy.
Peace out.
Peace. I'll see you later, Trip. Have a good one.
See you later. Have a good one.
You all have a good night. Thank you for coming out and checking out the pod. See you next time, everyone.